I thought the worst pain would be losing him, but I was wrong. My name is Ayaka Fujimoto, and for a long time I believed love was the gentle kind. Warm hands at the small of your back, shared headphones on train rides, the quiet safety of someone breathing next to you when the world felt too loud. I clung to that belief the way a child clings to a nightlight. Maybe I needed to. Maybe I still do. But the night I learned what love can do in the wrong hands, the bulb finally cracked, and all the soft light spilled onto the floor like shards I had to learn to walk on. Daichi Nakamura was the first person who made me feel like the noise inside my chest had a rhythm. He wasn't perfect, not even close. He left socks everywhere, burned rice more times than he'd admit, and teased me for crying at commercials where lost dogs find their owners. But he was golden when he laughed, all crooked smirk and storm gray eyes, the kind of boy whose voice could turn, "Are you hungry?" into a confession. I was careful with him at first, the way you are with something precious. We built our own language. 2 taps on my wrist meant, "I'm here." A tug on his sleeve meant, "Don't go yet." I kept every little signal like a seashell in my pocket, proof that waves really do touch the shore and then return. Reina Takahashi was the other half of my life, the girl who sat next to me in middle school and immediately tore her notebook paper in half because mine ran out. She was glitter and gravity at once. People orbited her without understanding why. I loved her for the way she fixed her eyeliner in reflective windows and then turned to fix mine. I loved her for spilling secrets across my pillow like spilled sugar and making me pinky promise not to tell anyone else. I loved her for saying we, like it was a vow. We'll get out of this small town. We'll never let a boy come between us. We'll always tell each other first. I believed her. I would have put my beating heart in her open palm and not asked for a receipt. The first time I saw them together, really saw them, was a Wednesday that crossed its arms and refused to be ordinary. Practice had run late, gym lights throwing long, tired shadows across the floor as I folded nets and taped my sore fingers. I texted Daichi, "Need your hoodie," and he sent a heart and told me he'd meet me by the vending machines in 10. I didn't mean to walk the long way around the gym. My legs simply carried me down the smaller corridor that cuts behind the equipment room and opens on the back staircase. I heard Reina's laugh before I saw her, light, practiced, sweet as something expensive. And then his voice, lower than usual. The door was cracked. I didn't intend to look, but intentions are weak when your name is shaking in someone else's mouth. I put my eye to the gap and saw Reina leaning against the cinder block, her hair spilling over her shoulder like ink, and Daichi standing too close, his palm flat on the wall above her head. The angle made it hard to breathe. She said something I couldn't hear, and he smiled with only half his mouth, the half he saved for me when he wanted me to forgive him for being late. I told myself they were just talking. I told myself everything friends do looks suspect when you're tired. I told myself lies because the truth was a house I didn't want to live in. I slid away on quiet shoes, texted him, "Don't worry," got warm, and went home trembling on the train with a winter that hadn't even started yet. Love survived that week because love is resilient when it's still wearing hope. Daichi showed up at my door with strawberries dipped in chocolate like we were in a drama, kissed the place just below my ear, where my skin forgets how to be skin, and said, "You know I'm yours, right?" He said it casually, like asking for chopsticks, and I nodded too fast because fear makes liars of us all. Reina sprawled on my bed the next afternoon, kicking her legs in the air and telling me about a boy from art class who kept asking for her Instagram. "He's persistent," she said, rolling her bright blue contacts at the ceiling. "Persistent can be cute. Or creepy. There's such a thin line." When I asked who taught her where the line was, She smiled without teeth and said, "You did, babe." Then she painted my nails the color of rosé and promised we'd grow old and scandalous. The second time was a message I wasn't supposed to see. Raina left her phone on my desk when she ran to the bathroom. It lit up with a preview because the universe is cruel and phones are traitors. D. You coming by after? Keys under mat. The contact name was an emoji, a black heart punctured by an arrow. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I stared until the letters swam, and then I set her phone farther away from mine like it might bite. She came back singing a line from a song we overplayed last spring and threw herself into my lap, using my shoulder as a pillow like always. I smoothed her hair and tried not to drown. I confronted no one that week. Instead, I learned their choreography. The way Daichi's replies got shorter when I asked if he wanted to study together. The way Reina avoided my eyes when I told a story about him and me. The way both of them looked relieved when I said I had extra practice and needed to cancel. I turned into someone I didn't recognize, a detective without a badge, a girl who counted footsteps as if they meant something. I saw the corner of his hoodie in her bag and convinced myself we owned the same one. I found a strand of her long black hair on his hoodie and told myself I shed too. 1,000 knives, and I pressed every one to my own throat before I let them cut me. The night everything fell apart was soft at first. Rain slicked the streets and made the traffic lights bleed into puddles. The kind of night when noodles taste better and beds feel like promises. I packed a lunchbox with his favorite, tamago that still steamed, rice pressed into a heart I almost laughed at, and took the bus because my hands were shaking too much to hold a bike handle. His building had a lobby that smelled like lemon cleaner and new carpeting. I knew his code. I knew the elevator's whine. I knew the hallway with the quirky painting of koi that looked more like goldfish. My knuckles kissed his door. Silence. I let myself in because that's what you can do when a person swears you are home. The light in the bedroom spilled a warm triangle into the hall. I called his name, heard a laugh, a soft one, familiar because it was mine once, and also not at all mine. I stepped forward even though my bones begged me to turn, even though my lungs told me oxygen would be more generous in the stairwell. The door was open. I saw skin. I saw his shoulder, the little scar where he fell off a bike at 12. I saw Raina's ankle hooked over his hip, her blue gaze over his shoulder directly into me like an arrow that knew my ribs better than I did. It's strange, the things you notice when your heart is being peeled open. The ceramic vase with baby's breath in it on his windowsill. The song still playing on his phone about forever and chains. The way his mouth formed my name before flattening into a line that said, "You shouldn't be here," like a homeowner to a stray. Reina didn't cover herself. She lifted her chin and said, "Ayaka," the way she says good morning. An apology shaped like a smirk. I don't remember dropping the lunchbox, only the sound, the sharp crack of plastic, the wet sigh of rice. I remember Daichi reaching, as if he could catch what was already broken. I remember backing away, turning, my stomach trying to crawl out of me. He said, "Wait," the oldest verb in our language, and I ran because my legs finally remembered how. Grief is a geography. The first country is denial. All fog and soft cliffs you can lean against without looking down. I lived there for 3 days, eyes swollen, phone silenced, mouth salt. Daichi sent paragraphs that read like someone had swallowed a thesaurus about regret. Reina sent exactly 2 words. Be kind. The 4th day I walked, because my body needed emotion it could control. I walked past the ramen shop with the lanterns, past the convenience store where the clerk knows my gum flavor, past the bridge where he kissed me last summer while fireworks painted Braille on the sky. I sat on the bridge's cold railing and watched my breath leave me in clouds. You are alive, I told myself, and it felt like both a comfort and a punishment. People say time heals. I don't know if that's true. Time is a laundromat. It tumbles you until you're less dirty, but the stains you wore when you walked in are still faint outlines of who you were. I went to class and nodded like a wind-up toy. I showered and cried where the water could pretend it was all it. I tried to sleep, but my bed remembered his weight as if mattresses could grieve too. In the quietest hours, with the city turned to hush, my hands reached for a phone I had blocked twice and unblocked 3 times. I wanted him to grovel. I wanted him to explain. I wanted him to hurt more than I did. I wanted opposite things and hated myself for wanting anything at all. Raina found me first. She has a nose for weakness. She can sniff it from across a courtyard. She waited by my locker, crossing one ankle over the other, flawless as a magazine page. "Can we talk?" she asked, knowing I couldn't refuse without looking like the villain of my own story. We walked to the old music room, the one with the piano that's always slightly out of tune. She closed the door with a delicacy I now found obscene. "I never meant to hurt you," she began, which is exactly what every person says when they sharpen the knife. He and we just understand each other differently. You're soft, Ayaka. He needs someone who doesn't let him sit in his worst parts. She tilted her head. You mother him. He needs a mirror. I let her words hit me because some part of me still believed she could be right. And you're his mirror? I asked, voice steady by a miracle or by spite. She smiled like she'd been given a crown. I'm his equal. Then she stepped closer, so close the perfume on her collarbone, white flowers and something chemical, replaced the oxygen. But I love you, she added, almost tender. You'll be better without him. Stronger, I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap. I wanted to ask how she could talk about love with my boy's lips still on her skin. Instead, I said, we promised. She flinched, not visibly, not in a way anyone else would have noticed, but I know the muscles of her face better than I know my own reflection. We were 15, she said softly, and somehow that hurt more than if she'd said grow up. Daichi's apology tour came next. He waited outside the gym after practice, rain slicking his hair into his eyes, hands in pockets like he thought this was a movie where sad boys in wet hoodies deserve forgiveness. It wasn't supposed to happen, he said. It just did. He kept saying it, as if betrayal were weather. You know I love you, he said at the end, as if love were a bandage big enough to cover the hole he cut in me. Say her name, I told him. He hesitated. Raina, he said finally, and I felt something inside me frost over. There, I said. Now go. He didn't. He reached for me, fingers brushing my wrist in our old signal. I pulled away. His face changed then, the boy receding, the man shaping. You're being dramatic, he said, which would have been funny if I didn't taste iron. No, I said. I'm being new. I thought the pain would taper, but grief is a tide. It goes and returns, sometimes angrier than before. I stopped looking for either of them and started looking at myself. I ate things that were not strawberries dipped in confessions. I ran until my lungs burned for reasons that had nothing to do with crying. I cleaned my room, not like I could scrub them out, but like I could make space for air again. And still, at odd hours, I saw them. Her blue eyes laughing at a joke I told him first. His storm gray watching her mouth, knowing exactly what it tastes like. It is a specific cruelty to be haunted by ghosts who are not dead. Then came the accident that wasn't an accident at all. It was choreography by a director who thinks horror and romance pair well. School festival night, lanterns like captured suns, paper booths, and 2 sweet drinks, everyone pretending we don't all break the same way. I wasn't going to go. I put on an oversized hoodie and decided to watch dramas where other people's pain looks beautiful and mine could take a nap. But Mizuki texted me a selfie in our class yukata and said coward with a heart, so I went. I saw them before they saw me. They looked like a poster for something I would never buy again. His hand at her waist, her head at his shoulder, their bodies slotted like 2 puzzle pieces that have been waiting in different boxes. People weren't stupid. Heads turned the way flowers do toward sun or toward gossip. The whispers came quick. Were they always? Poor Ayaka. She'll be fine. She's strong. And every syllable felt like someone closing a window in my chest. I could have left. I almost did. But something in me stood up taller instead. I walked straight toward them, through the sugar air and the music that sounded like summer pretending it would never end. Reina saw me first. For a second, I watched guilt flicker across her face like a power outage. Then the lights came back and she smiled. Save it, I said, and it felt good to hear my voice not shake for once. Daichi straightened like he might salute. Ayaka, you should, I agreed. You should do a lot of things, but you won't. He closed his mouth, a line drawn too hard. We didn't plan to hurt you, Reina offered, because she is incapable of silence when she thinks she can narrate a better story. I laughed then, short and not pretty. You planned enough of the rest. Maybe that should have been the end, some graceful exit where I tossed my hair and left them to collapse under their own weight. But I am not a saint, and grace is expensive. Open your phone, I told Reina. She blinked. Excuse me? Open it, I repeated, and my voice made her do it, the way lightning makes even slow hearts stutter. I had not wasted my hurt. In the week since the bedroom door, I had become a student of both of them. Reina uses the same 6 passwords for everything, because she is too clever to be careful. Daichi reuses old photos because he thinks nostalgia is evidence. I had access not to their souls are private, but to their carelessness. I had printed what I needed and backed up the rest. Screenshots, messages, dates, times. Too many babies and can't stop thinking of last nights, and she won't know if we're careful to pretend accidental meant anything here. I handed Reina the stack from my tote like papers from a pop quiz. She rifled through them, color draining, mouth opening and closing in a fish pantomime I might have found funny in some other life. Daichi reached for the pages and then didn't, because he could already see what they said. He looked at me instead, and something like fear finally swam up in his eyes. Ayaka, he began softer. Where did you... From the parts of you that thought I was too soft to look, I said. A small crowd had gathered without meaning to, the way people gather at low fires. Reina hates audiences she cannot control. She shoved the papers at me and hissed, "You're pathetic." "And you're predictable," I replied, almost gently. "But don't worry. I'm not here for blood. I'm here for honesty." "What do you want?" Daichi asked, as if love were a market and I had brought coins. I wanted the things you cannot hand a person. Back the summer we learned each other's freckles by touch. Back the night she double-knotted my laces and told me I was the only one she trusted with her ugliness. Back the version of myself that didn't know betrayal has a scent. Since those are not negotiable, I asked for something else. "Say it," I told them. Out loud. To me, to everyone. No more soft focus excuses. No more, "It just happened." Tell the truth. Reina lifted her chin like a queen walking to a guillotine. Fine, she said, eyes flaring. We fell in love. Daichi flinched. Reina, he warned, because he knows love is not a word you get to use like a band-aid. We fell in love, she repeated, louder now. I won't apologize for that. You can love someone and still be cruel, I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it was. The apology is for the cruelty. People shifted. Someone coughed. The music from the main stage swelled as if on cue, and then faded, poor thing, unsure if it belonged here. Daichi looked at the ground and then at me. I was cruel, he said, and his voice finally sounded like the boy who held my hand under winter jackets. I was selfish. He swallowed. I'm sorry. Sometimes apologies are balm. Sometimes they are salt. I nodded, because my body needed to do something small and humane. Thank you, I said, and the words did not cure me, but they didn't poison me either. Reina couldn't leave it alone. She never can. So what now? She demanded, as if I were a director and she a star waiting for her close-up. You ruin us? You tell everyone I'm a snake? Congratulations, you win. I looked at her for a long moment, at the girl who learned to braid my hair and lie with the same hands. I don't want to ruin you, I said honestly. I want to stop worshipping you. She didn't understand. That's okay. My words weren't for her. I left then, not with a toss of my hair, but with my tote held tight and my back straighter than it had been in weeks. The rain had paused, the kind of pause that feels like a held breath. I stood under a lantern, its paper bright against the new night, and exhaled until my ribs ached. Mizuki found me. She didn't ask what happened. She just handed me a bottle of water, tucked my hair behind my ear, and said, "Let's go home." For the first time in a long time, the word home didn't taste like him. Healing is not linear, and it isn't kind. The next morning, I woke up and cried so hard my mouth tasted like ocean. The afternoon after that, I laughed at a video of a dog wearing shoes and scared myself with the sound. I walked past the building with the koi painting and did not look up at his window. I blocked, unblocked, reblocked, and then deleted numbers like I was sweeping a floor that always gathers dust. I wrote poems so bad they made me blush, and then better ones that made me feel like maybe the part of me that creates had not died in the bedroom doorway. I forgave myself for not being over it. I forgave myself for waking from dreams with my hand reaching for a boy who isn't mine and a friend who never was. I stopped forgiving them in my head, which is to say I stopped arguing with ghosts. Weeks later, Daichi asked to meet for coffee. I went because I wanted to be able to sit across from what hurt me and not bleed onto the table. He looked thinner. Guilt is a poor diet. He asked about my classes, and I made a joke, and we remembered for 2 minutes what ease felt like. Then he said, "I miss you." And I said, "I miss who we were." And he nodded, because there are truths you cannot debate. She's a lot, he confessed, and if I had been the old Ayaka, I would have handed him a list of reasons to stay or leave. The new Ayaka sipped her coffee and said, "Then decide what you are, because we are all accountable to the choices we call fate." "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" he asked. And I thought about the word like it were a foreign fruit, uncut and shining. Forgiveness isn't permission to come back, I said carefully. It's allowing myself to stop carrying you. He looked at me then with a softness I recognized from 100 summer nights. "You always were stronger than me," he said. I smiled because it wasn't true, and also it was. I didn't meet Raina. She sent a message 2 months later with 3 sentences that read like puzzles. I hope you're okay. I dream about us laughing. You looked pretty at the festival. I didn't respond. Some doors remain closed, not because we are cruel, but because we deserve rooms we can breathe in. I put on lipstick, the shade she said washed me out. And it didn't wash me out. It made me look like someone who knows her mouth is for more than apologies. Strength does not always look like a sword. Sometimes it looks like a girl buying flowers for herself, yellow ones, because joy should be loud. Sometimes it looks like deleting a playlist and making a new one where no song belongs to anyone else. Sometimes it looks like letting your mother hug you for a second too long and not making a joke to deflect the tenderness. Sometimes it looks like standing in a mirror and saying, "You did not deserve it," until the glass nods back. But I won't pretend there wasn't a night I wanted to set their world on fire. I won't pretend there wasn't a plan written in a notebook in my desk, pages of what ifs, like matchsticks. I imagined standing on a cafeteria table and reading their messages aloud, with a clarity that stripped them to bone. I imagined emailing coaches and teachers and parents, binding them in consequences. I imagined 100 small humiliations, each one a pebble in the shoe of their days. Revenge is delicious in the mouth, an acid in the stomach. I tore the pages out one by one and fed them to the sink's flame, watched ash become the only thing left to touch. You want a finale? We always do. You want the great confrontation where she weeps and he crawls, and I, radiant and ruthless, deliver some line people will tattoo on their ribs. Maybe in another life, where lessons are cheap, that happened. In this one, the finale was small. I passed them on campus months later. They were arguing. He said something with both hands, the way he does when he's trying to hold a thought in the air. She lifted her chin, and the light hit her blue eyes so they looked almost soft. They didn't see me. I kept walking. My heart did the thing hearts do when they remember a shape. Then it remembered its own, and it settled. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the city's song, all brakes and sirens and late laughter. I pressed my palm to my ribs and felt my pulse, a metronome that had survived. You're doing it, I whispered to myself, to the ceiling, to the version of me under the bridge who thought the ache might be permanent. You're living. I won't lie and say love doesn't scare me now. It does. It will. But fear is a map, not a wall. One day, someone will say, "Are you hungry?" And it will sound like a promise I can taste without choking. One day, I will give the small signals again. 2 taps for I'm here, a tug for don't go yet. Not because I need saving, but because company is sweeter when you don't mistake it for salvation. One day, I'll tell this story without my throat tightening, and the girl who hears it will say, "Me too." And we'll both be a little less alone. Until then, I have mornings that don't demand grief first. I have friends who text me memes at midnight and drag me out for dumplings when my eyes look glassy. I have a body that carries me to the places I promised myself I'd go. I have a heart that learned how to beat without an audience. People ask what I would say to them if I had 1 minute and no consequences. I think I would say, "You taught me what I am not." Thank you. Not because gratitude is owed, but because I refuse to let bitterness be the last word on my tongue. They can keep the word forever. I'll take enough. Enough laughter to rinse the salt. Enough quiet to hear my own yes and no. Enough courage to leave when love turns into a room with no windows. Sometimes I still dream of that cracked lunchbox, the heart-shaped rice flattened, the egg cooling. In the dream, I pick it up, salvage what I can, sit on his bed, and eat with my fingers while they stare. I wake up smiling, a little wild, a little proud. Waste is a sin where I'm from, and nothing I went through will be wasted. It will become something. It already has. This isn't a fairy tale. It's not even a clean story. It's a girl learning how to be her own safe place after the two people she trusted most built a house on her back and then moved in together. It's a girl who cried and cursed and still made it to class the next morning with a ponytail and a coffee that tasted like stubbornness. It's a girl who will fall in love again, not because she forgot, but because remembering taught her how. And if you're listening with salt on your tongue and a hole in your chest, here is the last thing I know for sure. The hole does not stay a hole. If you don't fill it with their names, it becomes a window. One day you will look out and see yourself on the street below, walking, not toward them, but toward the late sun turning the buildings the color of forgiveness. You will wave to that girl. She will wave back, and you will both keep going. I thought the worst pain would be losing him. I was wrong. The worst pain was watching him choose her while still holding my hand. The best relief was finally unclasping my fingers and letting both their hands fall away. I'm Ayaka Fujimoto. I loved. I was betrayed. I did not break. And when I did, I learned how to be the one who puts me back together.